right, we are ready. Meeting can be started. Chairman, we have a quorum, yes. First thing on the agenda is election of officers. Are there any nominations for chair?
And then we have.
Okay, Electra has been nominated. Anybody else?
I'll say second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. All right, congratulations, you are now chair.
Binder yours and now we have
Binder
to
yours.
play and stuff. It happens like right now.
Okay, so now you get to do the election secretary. The election for secretary.
Nomination.
Call for nominations for secretary.
Yep.
And Chris.
Congratulations, Chris.
Well, we have to vote on it.
Oh, yeah.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Yeah, that's only your vote.
It's not no way.
We can
Yes,
carry.
so Brian, this is kind of a standard rotation. Okay.
Look forward to it. I'll be secretary next time around.
Next, whenever you're secretary, the next year you'll be president. Yeah.
That way you can pick up on it, get some time. That's on trial by fire.
And the approval for the bank.
Okay. Will we approve the minutes item?
More than I, but
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
we did.
Great.
Look at that. You're moving.
Public comment items not on the agenda.
I think for the past room that we have, everybody's here for something on the agenda. So, but if there's not, if you are here for something that's not on the agenda,
Elector,
Now is the time.
would you like to use this? Okay. All right.
Then items for discussion, Stevens criteria parcel and housing.
all right. So last month I told the commission that we were starting to see a encampment develop on the grounds across the river, and should have that, but since that time, we've had the camp increase, we've had the camp decrease in size. We've also had a couple of communications from the Iowa DNR, and within the last 48 hours, I think the conversation I expected to have with everybody has changed about 4 different times. So what we have now, we still have the situation of folks over across the river kind of camping out in this area. Right in here. We have Sam Brooks with the Shelter House. Okay, Sam, go. There you go. You moved on me. Sam, I think you've got someone with you.
Yep, this is
Okay.
Aaron.
I just haven't been introduced to everybody, so that's all. Kevin. We have Kevin Bailey here from the Iowa City Police Department. Sam and Kevin have primarily been liaisons with the camp. You know, the folks in the area are unhoused there, but they're kind of in line with services, trying to get services from the shelter house, trying to get housing, things like that. You know, the last month when we talked about it, it was kind of a situation where if we didn't have to do anything, we weren't really planning on doing anything. Kind of that situation. And of course, to bring you up to speed, a DNR officer had been in the area, had noticed they had some waste going into the storage pond that drains into the river. So that's kind of what triggered the thoughts I was going to have the conversation of going to clean it up and clear it out and that thing. But then Sam presented an option that I think we're able to consider in terms of putting some porta potties out there in the area. I had asked Jennifer to kind of take a look at that as an option, and you know what legal issues might we fall into, because now we're kind of doing something that acknowledges it's there. And, you know, again, my desire isn't really to go in and mess with anybody. There's a lot of these people who want services and need services, and I want them to get services, and it just takes time for that to happen. So I think with the introduction of that conversation, it alleviates the DNR concerns. So that takes that and kind of puts us back at the status quo. But I wanted Sam to kind of come and talk about what the shelter house does, what kind of services they're providing, what some of these folks are waiting for, and go from there and let you guys have kind of a full picture before we make any broader decisions and even look down the road, 4 or 6 months as we start approaching winter and might have to do something then because of the cold. So, Sam?
All right. I guess I could probably go.
Yeah, you're welcome to come up here to the
You
table.
guys can see, yeah, that works, and then everybody can see me. Yeah, so I guess for education's sake, I could just kind of give a rundown of street outreach and some of the services that, people who are unhoused and unsheltered, the way this encampment is, can receive through us and kind of how that works. So my position is contracted with the city, but I am an employee of Shelter House. So that means the engagement starts with a referral from either ICPD, city staff, community members, businesses in the area, really anyone in the community has the ability to find my contact information or eventually refer somebody who they think might be or is experiencing homelessness. So once I get a referral on somebody, then, and frankly, a lot of the referrals I get as well are from other members of the unhoused population, right? There are people who have gone through some level of engagement or services with us in the past and will then kind of open the door for us to spread the word, open the door and kind of help us make contact with other people who may be a little more hesitant to talk to us or engage with systems. So once that happens, then the next step is the engagement. And that looks very different for a lot of people. Every service that we offer through Shelter House is voluntary. That being said, though, we tailor it to just about every self-identified goal or personality and level of engagement somebody might want. So that engagement could take a year. There's been some people who don't talk to me for a year. They just see me around enough, and then eventually they know that my position exists and that there are some level of support that they can get from me or from Shelter House, and eventually that kind of builds in the long term. Some people are looking to get housing immediately. And then so that conversation is, how do we get the person to housing ready? And that's something that, that's a term that we use at Shelter House pretty often, is housing ready. And what does that mean? So housing ready would be, they have all of their documents. They have their IDs and social security card, birth certificate. They might have some level of income or income hasn't always been a requirement, but I think Aaron could probably attest, lately it's been more landlords have been a little stricter on requiring people to have income. So even with the financial assistance that Shelter House is able to offer and other housing services, KCAP or DVIP, we offer housing financial assistance as well. Landlords still sometimes will require income on top of that. And so that's one of the bigger barriers. So once we get through IDs, medical insurance, food assistance, childcare for some folks who have children, then they're housing ready. And then that's where we rely on landlords and third parties to essentially, that's where things leave our hands for the most part. I mean, we do applications and we build relationships that are pretty strong with landlords, but at the end of the day, it's them who are going to approve and have units available for, people who are oftentimes have poor credit, maybe criminal history and evictions on their record, mental health issues that maybe have gone untreated. So those are barriers that people experience when a landlord sees those things. Oftentimes they think responsible property management thing to do is to not rent something like that. So our goal is through time to get them to it's ready for those things and build those relationships as much as we can. I don't know, Erin, is there anything that I'm missing?
No, I think just on what you said about kind of the income aspect. So Shelter House receives lots or a good amount of federal funds to be able to assist people moving out of their experience of homelessness and into housing. So we have programs that are able to pay security deposits and honestly up to a year of rental assistance. We have strong relationships with the Housing Authority where there are lots of variety of different vouchers who they prioritize for individuals experiencing homelessness, where maybe, 5 years ago, you would have heard the wait list for Section 8 was, 2 years long and the likelihood of anyone getting it would be slim. Now there are specialty vouchers that the Iowa City Housing Authority has been granted that allows us to expand those services quite a lot. However, as Sam mentioned, like just the housing stock, I think it's no surprise to anyone in this community is slim. Affordable housing is really difficult to find. And even with the financial assistance through our HUD grants and the Housing Authority assistance, landlords, like Sam said, are sometimes requiring people to have an income, which is just really challenging for us. If you're on, let's say, Social Security benefits and you have a Section 8 voucher, you're not going to have necessarily gainful employment. And so that's a barrier that we're having to kind of educate and do some conversations with landlords on, just to talk about, that there is guaranteed income that will pay their rent. It's just not in the form of employment. So that's been a challenge that over the last 6 months, we've seen just more landlords. And honestly, this is a after effect of the pandemic, right? So the federal government put the kind of the eviction moratorium on so that landlords could not evict during the pandemic. And now that that's been dropped, we saw a significant increase in evictions. And then landlords also just kind of having a lower tolerance, right? Because they were stuck with some tenants for a longer period of time than they wanted to be. So it's complicated, but I think what I've kind of shifted back to Sam to go in the direction of the individuals who are specifically on this piece of land that you guys are talking about, because Sam knows better than I the individual situations of each individual there. But I do think it's worth talking about kind of the challenges of the community that we are living in and realistically how long it might take for some of those individuals to find housing. So I know, the question on the table, I'm sure, is like, how long do you think it will take for people to be able to move into housing off of that property and off of that property? And we would like it to be immediate, right? We believe everybody should live in our community in housing with dignity. And so it's now just trying to navigate that housing system within our community, which relies heavily on kind of this August 1st turnover dates, and then a secondary round after that where units that were not leased during that time. So I'm going to shift it back to Stan so he can kind of talk about what that process looks like and how it's hard, like he said, for us to give like an exact timeline, but how we are engaging and how this process looks.
Yeah, and one thing I'll mention too that I think is kind of a question that I didn't really know, or maybe I had before I started working at Shelter House, was some of the reasons that people choose to stay outside and camp instead of stay in our shelter. And choose is maybe not even the right word, because for one, our shelter has 70 beds, that's including the family rooms. And right now on any given day, we probably have 20 people who are on the waiting list, 10 to 30 on any given day of people who are on the waiting list to get into our shelter every day. So the shelter is at capacity almost indefinitely all the time. And though that waiting list is, you know, probably not including a lot of these folks who have decided to, you know, try it on their own or with this other community of individuals who, you know, they can find safety with and community with. So for specifically these folks, you know, like I said, there's kind of been a fluctuation in numbers a little bit, but it you know, it's been anywhere from 5 to 10, depending on, we've had a couple people who we've been able to get housing for. But tomorrow, one person is supposed to move. And then there are people who inevitably, like, you know, Aaron said, it's going to be really hard for us to put a date on when that might come for them. They're on every, I mean, I can pretty confidently say that every person who's there has, you know, positively engaged with Shelter House and actively looked for our services as far as housing, as far as getting connected to medical insurance. I think almost everyone there now has health insurance and food assistance, which are, you know, might not, those are things that just bring them closer to stabilization and to this place where they can then, you know, be ready, be housing ready, like we talked about. I think, I mean, yeah, everyone, like we said, has applications in. They're, I don't know about, yeah, I think everybody has had housing applications done at this point, which means they, you know, at some point have their IDs and been working with case managers to find places. And this August 1 lease cycle, like Aaron said, will be, it kind of comes up quick who gets a place and who doesn't. So that's another thing that's kind of hard to determine ahead of time. But yeah, other than that, it's that's,
yeah, I mean, just if you guys have questions or anything, we can definitely talk about kind of, I don't know, any other questions about process or situations. I mean, you'll hear Sam keeps things pretty general just because of confidentiality, right? So we don't typically provide names or specifics about the individuals there. So, but if there is things that you are wondering about, we can answer them and pretty generally while still answering your questions.
Is there more housing contemplated by the city or by you guys? And
That's a good question. Yeah. So all of our housing units that we currently offer are full. We actually have 2 open, but there are 2 people that are slated to move into them already. I can tell you that Christy always has something up her sleeve that she's working on, our executive director, in terms of expansion or other housing programs. It is very apparent to anyone who works in the field that we need more permanent supported housing units in our community, in our state, across the country. And we have really good partnerships to be able to expand the services that we have. Honestly, funding is one of the biggest challenges. And so that's been something that we've been more actively talking about, especially public funding to operate our emergency shelters, because we are an essential service. We learned that very clearly during the pandemic. And so I can tell you that I would anticipate there would be some growth in our permanent supported housing programs, and our strategic plan clearly states that we will. It's the timeline of that I can't say for sure, but that will be coming. It doesn't provide a solution for these, you know, individuals in the next,
Right.
you know, couple months.
it's just a disgrace that this is happening in our country.
It really is. And, you know, one of the questions that is really hard and being asked on a national level, which I'm going to just pose it here, is that Iowa City has between 80 and 85 unhoused individuals, right? So this is a 10, potentially up to 10 people in a population of people that is growing. And we're seeing that because of many different reasons, which I can talk at length of, but really at a state level, it's due to the closing of a lot of state funded programs, right? And I think one of the things that Sam and I talk a lot about, right, is what's better? What's the better way to manage these individuals who have literally no other choice? Because if they could be living somewhere else, they would be, right? Living outside is not what people choose to do. It's what their kind of last option is. And so, as a city, do we mitigate these issues of people living outside across the community in a bunch of different locations, knowing that opens them up to more harm from community members, from police interaction, possibly to businesses? Or do we have a group of individuals who have found a somewhat insulated area, and do we as a city kind of provide those services intensively there and help them relocate into housing from that location? And I don't have an answer to that, right? That's a larger question that is more than what I can answer, but it is part of what we are talking about here.
Is Houses to Homes connected with that too?
So they provide furniture. That's the only service that they provide. So that is definitely a service. We also partner with Habitat for Humanity, who provides furniture for individuals moving out of shelter for us. So it's definitely a great service, but unfortunately not housing.
And at the commission level, I think, I expressed this last month, and I expressed this kind of in the introduction. I'm not eager to go. Part of the reason why, and part of the reason why is because they are within access to the shelter house, and we have some community support, and we have some good people with Kevin that are acting as liaisons to the community, making sure people are relatively safe and nothing terrible is going on out there. And because of that, or as part of the reasoning, is because of these kind of circumstances, I'm not super eager to go do anything. As long as we don't have any of those triggering events like the DNR contact, that, kind of puts a lot of liability on our plate where we need to go after we do something. But from that aspect, I don't know that we need a specific decision tonight. It's more of we do need to look ahead to some degree, like we are going to have winter coming on. Whether we want folks out there during the course of the winter where it gets a little harder to access. And there are some, if the airport commission does choose to ultimately go through the eviction process, there's some legal things that have to take place, and notifications, stuff like that. So if we were looking at kind of a November timeframe to make sure people are out, we'd have to start those conversations in like September.
I'll jump in there and say, in December, Shelter House opens an additional temporary winter shelter. And a good portion of these folks were people who stayed at the winter shelter. It closed in March. And so that's why you see, in the summer months, there's always an uptick in population size right there. So that's 40 to, actually, I think we had 50 with overflow.
Yeah. And it's, we would be strongly encouraging those individuals to come inside during those winter months. That, Sam's relationship with them would hopefully allow them to feel comfortable coming into that space. And I'm going to offer your services, Sam, but, Sam has already he's that trusted person for them. So it's, if there's engagement with them, whether it's Kevin, but I would refer back to Sam with moving them in case there is that property maintenance types of things that need to be done, such as mowing. Even if one of the camps is getting a little bit dirtier, we have worked with other locations to get a dumpster so that way we can remove those items. And Sam's getting in there and talking with those individuals and who are willing to say, okay, yeah, I can reduce my items because it's getting too much. But yes, I agree with Sam. The likelihood of those individuals, like if you're looking at an eviction process in November, I would actually encourage just to let the winter shelter open and let us do our job to get them inside.
Yeah, that was my concern, is that they'd have a place to go in the cold.
Mhm.
When they fortify their sites preparing for winter, it's almost, they call it hibernation. So it's dangerous to move folks in the winter because they're not able to move their wool blankets or their heaters or whatever they've done to kind of make a force field for against the elements. We get nervous about any camp getting shut down during winter months, but some will not go to shelter, and then they're braving the -30.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, right now there's 80-ish folks outside. And when we did our January point in time count, it was 14.
Mhm.
So it is significantly less. But there are some folks who do that, yeah. And so I still go out there.
There's 80 people in that area there?
No,
Oh, that's
less than 10.
okay, that's it.
No, we're saying 80 people who are unhoused in our community.
I see, okay.
5 to 10 over there.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Outside of an awareness issue at this point, I think, and I don't necessarily need a motion, but my plan is with the introduction of working with Sam to put porta potties out there and make sure things are a little bit cleaner. I don't really have the intention of doing much else unless I'm directed or unless there's like I said, one of those ones where we just have to do something. Jennifer, do you have anything else you need to add, or Kevin?
I mean, I would just add, we think that the portable toilets will resolve the DNR issue. I don't think we know that for sure. So just, I guess, we're hopeful that would resolve it, but.
Part of the issue we're having is accessibility to that area because they have those big tanker type trucks that bring those in and for the cleaning and stuff. And that, I mean, it looks flat and easy to, it can get, like I was back there this morning with the rain, those trucks would have just sunk in the mud.
Yeah.
So
We own this piece right here also. I mean, would that have any consideration to have more of a straight back right here? I think if I remember right, the camp is kind of more along these.
yeah, and then around that
And
little
then-
curve to the left.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it goes all the way back. I mean,
there
it goes
it's all the way back here.
But yeah, if you put it too far away, they won't use it.
Yeah, that's the other issue. I don't know where the location is, and I know the topography over here is absolute garbage.
It is
Um,
rocks and
yeah.
ruts and
So I might, again, leave that to probably.
Sam
you
and I have
guys.
been talking because what they were doing is the waste was going in basically heavy plastic bags and they were chucking it in the water. And then Sam and I were like, whoa, we cannot be doing that.
Yeah.
DNR, you're gonna have a laser beam focused on this camp. And I haven't seen that in the last 4 weeks since I've been out there. I've seen no floating bag. And
And my read on the message that I'd been forwarded from the DNR was they were in the area because they just cleaned up some Staples area. And kind of because of that, they've been keeping a closer eye on the situation and observed kind of some of that same activity.
Are composting toilets feasible there instead? Are those smaller to bring in?
I don't know. I think, my hope is that the city has been really good partners to work with throughout kind of this whole year but just in this process also, we meet on a regular basis and I hope that we can, whether it's the portable toilets or some other type of option, I think the great thing about like Sam and Kevin being out there so much and kind of keeping an eye on things is we can tell really quickly when things are not working as planned and then maybe readjust, and come up with a new
I'm
plan.
just thinking for the DNR
Mhm.
problem, would composting toilets,
Well,
they're smaller, you could bring it in without having to deal with the.
Sam and I can look into that. I'm trying to set up a meeting with DNR,
Okay,
Sam, Aaron and I soon.
I know my
And get
friend
their
Connie
thoughts
Hill
on it.
had one at their house, that's all they ever used. That worked for a family of, well, that was 4, so
But Sam and I are out there every week. I worry about the homeless female population because they're sometimes assaulted. And so like I'll see him coming as I'm going. I mean, so we get eyes on that camp. I'm out there at least once a week, if not more, and Sam is too. The folks back there now are generally kind of policing themselves. But any encampment, I mean, it's dirty, there's trafficking out there, it makes some business owners uncomfortable. And so I mean, you're still gonna have some of just those natural issues with the encampments behind businesses.
Have the airport gotten pressure from the businesses that back up for that, the property owners?
The police department has. So what we have is they have friends that come and go from the area. And then they'll run an extension cord to one of the business owners to run a TV, run a radio, run something. They'll rifle through. You're getting not really. It is a car burglary, but people are going through and looking for loose change and stuff. And then there's, you have some young female employees in the area that I've talked to, and there's some poor social skills. Not with everybody, because most of the people in the camp are decent. I mean, Sam and I know them, but their friends and the folks that'll come there will, I mean, for lack of a better word, catcall a pretty girl, and it just makes people uncomfortable. So there's a stream of folks coming and going. So we do get, I mean, I've got multiple calls, I would say 4 or 5, but I've reached out to every business owner, told them about what Sam and I do, some of the remedies they lock their cars and things like that. But we've seen some minor theft and some disruptions.
Sure. That's fine, I just didn't know.
I've had one business owner call me throughout this whole time frame to talk directly with me.
And I've had the same person call me that called Mike, and I think
And that's where that business owner is, and I won't name him, but that is kind of the trail of folks that go through that business. He's done a few things to mitigate it, but it's just the natural path that they walk to and from. But I mean, I'm gonna be honest, he's frustrated. I'm gonna be honest. He doesn't want those folks
I
back
definitely
there.
got that message, yeah.
And I mean, he's got some valid concerns.
Well, it's at least a lot better here than it is in Portland, Oregon.
Right. Well, the thing is, Sam and I know these folks. I'm new to the outreach position. I supervise our outreach. I've been in it 10, 11 weeks. And, just when I supervised patrol and work investigations, I knew this went on. I knew Sam and all of these services. And now I get a front row seat. When Sam says, there'll be 10 people there someday, and then I'll call him and I'm like, hey, the couple at the end is gone. He's like, yeah, I got them housed. So, I mean, the numbers do fluctuate. I counted 6 there this morning. And I know the couple's gone, so Sam did his work. So but like I said, but tomorrow I could go and there can be 6 and there can be 12. That's what my experience has been.
What do you guys typically recommend, or what's your recommendation for the commission of things to do in this spot based on, because obviously we know way less. I'm not on the commission, I just work here. What would be the ideal situation, based on the pressures you see that the airport's in?
We'll never get it to 0. It's been my 10 and 11 weeks experience. I mean, we're not going to bat 1,000 on the population. It's just, I mean, I think when Sam thinks 80's high, I think 80's for this town is he's doing great work and Aaron's doing great work.
Yeah.
So we're not Cedar Rapids or Des Moines or down. What to recommend? I'm here for facts, and I've got my own personal opinions. It's a social problem, and I just don't know if it'll ever be fixed.
the city hasn't. So the city has had encampments, but usually they're in the right of way. And so we can't evict from the right of way. So what the city's, I guess, practice has been is that periodically they provide notice and work with the people that are there to go in and clean out the area for health and safety and sanitary reasons. But we haven't, and my understanding is the city hasn't really had a situation where there's an encampment on outside of the right of way. And so that does give the additional option where there could be an eviction
Can you expand on what right of way means in context?
So usually people are under bridges.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's right of way that anybody in the public, you know, could come and go from. So we're not, so this is, I mean, it's public property, but it's property that you could trespass people from, which you could not do in right of way.
Got it.
So like your sidewalks are gonna be right of way. So this is a little different. So there's really no, you know, the city doesn't have a policy or a practice or a whole lot of prior experience with this. The other encampment that we were referencing, Stables Camp, that was on private property. So that was not city property.
That's something that the city wants to provide. Guidance on, or are they gonna be the airport commission that sets the precedent?
I think it's gonna be us to some degree, that's the precedent. I had communications with city manager staff and they did not really give me the indication they were eager to clear people out. So
It's the airport commission's authority about what to do on the property.
yeah, this is ours, this is our decision,
But there's also no prior art to it.
but there's no.
For this.
Right.
Yeah.
Third rail.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
You're
Okay.
creating them.
They're great. Yeah, there's no prior precedent within the city that we can find that we give this better.
I will just say that an eviction, when we're talking about barriers, an eviction on somebody's record is another one of those that landlords are very, even if it's from not another apartment. It's something that it's from the staff that
It makes it harder.
that way. Yeah. It just kind of shrinks the pool of eligible housing units that somebody could get if there's, especially, I mean, the longer in the past the eviction has been, the more likely people move past that. But a very recent eviction is a pretty big hurdle.
I'm inclined to follow Mike's advice on this.
Yeah.
And that's not because you said it, not because I can blame you for it, but because I'm not looking to throw you under the bus, but I just want to be able to sleep at night, and doing something about this now doesn't seem like a prudent thing to me. I'm speaking for me, not the commission. So that's where I
What's
stand.
the logistics of a porta potty type situation? Is that something the airport pays for? In the winter, they can't service something like that. I mean, they maybe can and freeze, I suppose.
Based on our meeting in Tuesday with the city, it was my understanding that the city has a contract with a porta potty company.
Yeah, they were gonna look into it. Ron Kanucky, I think, directed one of his staff members. We had that meeting Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I just don't have the information. Mike's got my cell phone number, and Sam and I talk all the time, so we can keep you updated on the project. The porta potty may be a no-go. I mean, the vendor may be like, we're not doing it. It's too rough back there. I agree with Mike. If we don't put it close enough, it won't be used. So that's kind of the sweet spot that we need to get that in. And it's just too soon to know. That's the best answer I have.
I guess one of those things, this is going to be a fluid situation for a while. The general practice is going to be to let things be, barring some type of massive triggering event that just forces us to be there. The other thing we're kind of skirting is we're in a very, very gray area with a lot of FAA stuff because it is airport property. Our grant assurances still extend to this ground. So it becomes kind of that just mix of, not only is this general public type stuff, but we also have that added layer of FAA grant assurances that we typically don't ever see anywhere else.
What types of trigger events? How close are we on the, like, okay, give me a spectrum of gray. Yeah.
Continued DNR issues where we could be at risk of fines or things like that.
Fires,
Fires, large scale fires, or large scale criminal activity, just whatever that happens to be. If there's a large uptick, stuff like that. we want people to be safe as well. That's the other trigger. So those kind of things. I don't know, like the list is going to be kind of a as things happen evaluation. But that's at least in my head what I'm thinking of when I say, you know, a trigger event. It's these things that we're risking, like actual starting monetary fines or issues with other government agencies where
So having said that, is there a reason why holding on to this property? Is there a way we can offload?
At the moment, because it's such garbage property, nobody wants to buy it. There is some conversations for the area on the south end. Somebody's approached the city for like this area down here. I don't know, but this stuff up here is all garbage rock. It's absolute, it's garbage ground. And as a matter of fact, I think it was part of the old landfill, which literally means it was garbage ground. So yeah, the value of it, and we own it because when we had the longer protection zones, it was under the protection zone, which it's not now.
That area is not under protection.
Nope. Let's see. There might be a little triangle right here that touches it, but the stuff up here, all of this would be clear. This lot's clear.
Can we give it to Parks?
I wish it worked that way.
I'm gonna guess, but my inclination is that because we don't have the right to sell airport land without city council approval, we probably also don't have the right to give it away.
I think that's a good yes.
So your recommendation is to hold steady and let the process do what it's meant to do.
But the situation evolves.
Or something changes to the point that we do need to get involved, but right now you don't think that it's there.
As long as we
I don't think so.
solve the DNR problem.
Okay.
It's not like the guys have made strides to just in changing some behavior.
And we're happy to come back and provide updates. I mean, Sam can obviously call Mike directly and provide more immediate updates, but if you guys want us to, we can definitely come and share as much as we are able to and kind of give an update. And also, I think Sam and I are no stranger to also being able to just really realistically say to you, like, okay, we've gotten everybody who we can, who's able to move into housing off. And if we're seeing kind of a situation evolve where it's not going to kind of result in people either coming to winter shelter or something like that, then I would understand if we have to make some hard decisions then. And honestly, in the case of Staples, right, like those hard decisions are us trying to motivational interview somebody off of that property before they get the eviction. So that way we can avoid that. And that's something that we do. Doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes people, want to see that piece of paper before they take any action. But
So Staples, there was no arrest, no force used.
right.
Sam and they gave us 2 weeks lead time. So every day we were out there, hey, this is coming.
Yep.
We're reminding, working with the sheriff's office. My biggest fear is, we forcefully have to remove someone. We did not. They got all their property, sensitive items, birth certificates, all that. But like Aaron said, there were people there living there the minute we came in and said, you have to go. But because of the relationship Sam and I have with the majority of them, they're just like, okay, Bailey, I'm going south, or, have Sam give me a call. But
And I think that would be my intent too, is to give time.
We do.
I don't want to go in there, 24
yeah, it's not
hours
a fix
later.
like you see on TV where you're going. We telegraph it. They know what's coming.
I would think if you keep Mike updated,
Mhm.
he'll let us know. I don't know
Kevin,
that
Sam and I have been talking
Yeah,
quite
I
a
don't
bit
know
over
that
the last month or so.
back here.
Okay.
To the extent possible to put it in your communication
Yeah,
to us
'cause-
that you send out on occasions, so we know.
He sends out between commission meetings, he sends out notices, information, so we would be kept up.
Is there any, I'm trying to look at worst case scenario. If something really happened and we had to take action, do we have to come in for a meeting to decide something, or are we giving you the authority to?
At this point in time, I don't perceive I have the authority, so I would probably have to call you back for a special.
Okay.
Right, yeah, I think we would want the commission to
decide
direct the filing of it's called enforceable entry into detainer action.
Okay.
So,
It's just logistically getting by or getting 3 people in a room in a hurry can be hard, so. Okay.
And that action wouldn't, you know, if there was the worst case scenario, it's gonna probably take at least 30 to 45 days. So that's a pretty fast process in the legal world, but it's not a fast process.
so with that, any other questions, comments? Thank you to everybody for being here. Just had to know what the sense of the group is, so.
All right, awesome.
And thanks, by the way.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. You got a tough job.
I will.
And our next item on the agenda is the airport strategic plan. And we're looking to really do a doc certification. I'm here for questions. Yeah.
You all did have the draft plan in the packet. I did get a couple of comments, just typographical stuff, no, you're fine. It was things I caught too, so like, yeah, nomenclature needs to kind of reflect, but other than that, unless there's
I think it was fine.
Yeah.
And it took all of the things that we were interested in. I don't see any changes.
This will be your public facing document. Once we make those changes, update the minutes, put the resolution in. So if you're happy with the content as well as the appearance, that's kind of what I'm trying to get feedback about. I want to make sure that you have something that appropriate really reflects your intent as well as, you know, professionalism and all. So it's perfect. Yeah.
Thank you for all your help.
Yeah, thank you.
I love working with this group, so thank you. And congratulations on your award renovation. I saw you on the list of, oh, okay. Thanks. I was looking for you, but I could say congratulations. Thank you so much for all that help. Getting this together and guiding us through. It's been great.
I move that we consider a resolution adopting the report strategic plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Roll call, Ryan.
Right. Chris? Yes. Electra? Aye. Warren? Aye. Judy?
Aye. Got it. First resolution.
so, yeah.
We're getting a copy of that resolution once. it's
Well,
signed.
yeah, we'll get it signed,
Updated
and then the final minutes for this week. So.
Right, and I still think it's lagging on some.
Yeah. So just some.
I pulled minutes from the, I still download the council packets, because, you know, that's a, I don't know, that's like, that never goes away.
Minutes that we had.
So, I'll look, or before we can finalize all that, but I'll work with you to finalize get the final copy and provide it to you. Okay. Thank you. Okay, that was it.
Here we go.
See, we're already ahead of schedule.
Next item on the agenda is that mural project.
Hager A mural, so basically what we talked about last month, kind of this week is the end of fundraising, if you will, the offer for somebody to donate $5,000 to pick an airplane to throw on that mural expires Saturday, technically the 15th. So I expect our funding is going to be done. The information you had in your packet, we raised roughly $20,000. We had we had 8,000 given to us from the Public Guard Advisory group, and then we also have a pledge that is still in progress at $5,000. So ultimately, we're about $7,500 short. We do have I'll call it a mysterious benefactor, the lack of better vocabulary. It's like the 20 still wanted them to pay them out, unless they want to get themselves together. That we discussed funding shortfall. However, the commission still has the opportunity as a whole, because that's something that's collectively, we have everybody. Something. So we wanted to do it on capital.
$40,000.
1,000, 2,000. I think I can make those work pretty easily. But it does kind of.
So this would be from the balance of cash.
Yeah, this would be from our. Yeah. I mean.
Most of us, not all of us, put something into it from the commission. So it's not like,
Yeah,
it doesn't have a error. I don't know. It doesn't, it's not like it doesn't say, well, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. It's not that unfavorable. Yeah, so I'd be fine with doing that. It just puts, we said we were gonna fund it.
You want to know about hard? Yours is the one that's in problem. The problem, yeah.
So we do resolution or?
A motion is enough for me, but we need to, I didn't catch all of what you said. You say, what do we have covered $1?
Yeah, no, but like you suggested like 1,000 to 2,000.
Yeah.
2,000 is fine.
Okay.
I was gonna say, wouldn't you have covered the difference anyhow?
Yeah, but this is like the commission saying like we're going to put some money behind it, and if we don't fund the rest of it, then
Our benefactor is
I see.
lined out to,
or we fund it.
or we fund the whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
7,500 is a little harder to deal with. It's not impossible.
yeah. I don't disagree, but the 2,000 is like we put skin in the game.
Yeah.
and it shows the
Kind of.
this project.
Yeah, kind of have the shortfall.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I think 2 is a fine number if you're okay with it.
Yeah, I can make that work.
When I move that we allocate 2,000 from our cash on hand to donate to the hangar renewal project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I believe roughly about $5,000.
The next item on the agenda is airport construction project.
FAA grants, 1230 threshold relocation. We have the contract signed. So those will go back to the contractor. Again, with that contract, the way we wrote it, they can't start until they have all of their materials because we knew the electrical lag was still outrageously goofy. I don't expect that to happen until next calendar year. But if for some miracle they do get stuff in and can work this year, they have that ability. No, that was the display. That was a 12301. Runway 25 threshold relocation. We still need to meet with the contractor to kind of go over a final punch list and resolve the paint issues on the markings and take care of that. But that'll happen.
That's just on runway 25. Right?
Yeah, that was just on runway 25. And it's more on the east end of it as opposed to the west. The west end seems to be pretty good for holding up. Turtle area study. So we'll start kind of turning this over. We've got a couple of fun activities for the commission to do. We met earlier this afternoon and Judy and Warren were involved in the conversation.
Very much.
We didn't quite get.
Sorry.
But I'll also introduce Carl and Ron, and Carolyn. And that's our team putting together the terminal building study. Part of the conversations we had today is kind of about getting a vibe of what things look like, especially if we need to go to a new building design. How does people feel about either open spaces, more smaller spaces, things like that. So I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn and Ron and Carl and let them talk.
So that was a good intro. I could just kind of jump into it. I think maybe we have about 15 minutes worth of discussion and
we have two questions that I wanted to ask everybody about, like measures of success. How will we know if this project is successful at the end of the day? And then I'm going to ask everybody to get up and do some green dots, red dots on visual preferences, because our next step is going to be starting some sketching on the options, and we want to know sort of what some of the aesthetic preferences are from this group before we get that underway. So with that, I'll start with this first question here. And this is, I'm going to ask everybody to sort of like put themselves a little bit in the future. So imagine it is 2033 and the terminal, in whatever renovated new addition form, has been open for several years. How will we know if this project is successful? What will be one outcome that we know will demonstrate success?
We don't have sufficient space.
Yes.
All of our activities.
And increase traffic. Verified and the other. Yeah. So community traffic and airside user traffic. Okay. Building will be structurally sound. Good idea.
And it goes without saying.
Yeah, I think everyone says it has to be.
Any other thoughts? How will we know it's successful?
Pleasant and welcoming.
We're going to focus on some pride.
Okay.
Or other airports will be choosing our building on the green red exercise.
That is a good aspiration to have. I will get that written down here. So
That's facetious. You don't have to. I think that's.
People will be jealous of us. Yes, that's something to do with us.
James will say we should have done it.
So maybe before we move to the next one, like just to dig into like an increase in community use, what do you think that would entail? Why would the community want to come here?
Specifically?
Yeah.
I mean, if we do it right, then I mean, this space here we make available, right? And people can use it, but people don't know about it. If it looked really nice and people were drawn to it, chances are they would ask for it, or they'd be hiring in to use it.
And if it had the proper associated facilities, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
I know where you're going with this.
Right.
Yes, you did. Just kidding.
And we were talking earlier about the apron expansion program. That's something that could drive an increase in airside traffic. But what other sort of amenities would airside users want in the terminal that would help with that?
Airside users.
I'll say in the restaurant.
Yeah, that could be a
I mean,
potential.
that's a huge drop of people coming in lots of other airplanes.
Didn't you mention like a sleeping facility?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's on this.
Yeah, shower would be nice.
And showering.
Okay. So this is sort of getting into the next question here. What physical attributes will help the project fulfill its goal? So heard better conferencing facilities, sleeping rooms, and showers. What other physical things should we plan for or program for? More space for the manager. Okay. Office space.
Test. There's a basement.
Anything else?
So most other airports that I've flown into, the FBO terminal building has a little refreshment area, you know, with like a coffee machine and stuff like that. I think that would be attractive to our pilots wanting in.
Standard pantry and coffee bar.
Yeah, just like basic amenities, right? Like a beverage fridge that has like waters in it, or
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
We actually have that on the kind of That's provided by.
Nope. So I was gonna say, don't worry, I can read my handwriting even if you can't.
But maybe
Yeah,
it
you
needs
stand.
to expand. If we can't have any sort of food service, then
Okay.
Expanded in.
exactly.
One thing that started to pop up in the last year, it's probably not fit for here, is I've started to see airports with hotels on the property, like FBO hotel building, stuff like that. There's one that's popping up in Nebraska. It's a pretty short runway, like 4,000, 3,500 foot runway. But he's doing like a hang, like where you have hangar space and a hotel. It's like a destination kind of place to go type of thing. And there's one in Florida, which would be a much more desirable place to go, I think. But
It's signature.
It's not a great signature.
it's not a crazy idea. And actually, to be honest, here, what's the big thing is that when you get all these big draw events, a lot of times the thing you run out of first is hotel rooms. And so then the crews don't have places to stay.
Yeah.
So the pilots are the last ones looking for the last ones and find out it's time to go to someplace. But
Well, do you think instead of just a sleeping room for people waiting to go to the market transplant or something, we could have a few rooms that you could rent out?
if you're really dreaming, that's a thing to do. But the problem is, I can just imagine a gigantic storm, building code issues came quickly some with the semi-residential type of thing. That was bigger than I mentioned, but
Not sure that's part of our
it wouldn't fit right.
plan to have. 30. Yeah, something 2033. Thinking 2033. We want to be competing with the hotels and things around here that are trying to survive.
No, but I think it's worth mentioning that airports that are, I mean, to your point, Matt, there are airports that are a smaller facility than we who are offering better amenities than.
We started thinking about that.
Yeah, I'm not think anybody that's gonna have.
We did talk about some.
Yeah.
So rooms here and some facilities with showers.
Some crew sleep quarters would honestly be very personified. You know,
We talked about that this afternoon.
I don't want to change the discussion too much, but Matt or Mike, do you have some sense of the number of charter flights that come in here that aren't done by a jet air, what their amenities or what their requirements might be to line up with this? Because obviously your crews are based, that's different than.
I would say that the percentage of jet air is less than 50% probably of the flights that we would want to come in here on charter flights, but then definitely would probably 30% maybe overall of charter flights. So a lot of them are dangerous people coming in, but then the entire organ procurement thing is all pilots. The come in the middle of the night, for 3 or 4 hours, eat, sleep, or rest. And I think a lot of the guys like to, their lifestyle, like the ability to be able to go for a run, obviously the sidewalk, above that, stuff like that, which leads to the one thing, a shower, potentially. I've been asked multiple times if we had a shower to use, and the one that we had to offer, we used to wash parts in the shop. So you know, up for it, they use it, but it's not that real thing.
Have cancer.
So, yeah, so it sounds like crew amenities is heavily.
Yeah. Cars are the biggest, and we have phenomenal first-class restaurants and hotels, stuff so close here that most places you go just literally do not. So the biggest demand item, which is more so on our side, here, although around the country, there's a lot of places where it's the city's vehicle, basically. It's, and that.
Old cop car.
But a lot of times they're even nice. Though. The economic development group said, hey, this is something we want to go after. Here's a nice something. And right now it's not a need because we have a bunch of cars and do that, but that's just something to keep in mind.
But didn't you mention in the past that sometimes we get a lot of our fee drop off here for the rental company?
Yeah.
So would it be an option to have one of them?
Well, really,
Like a rental counter.
maybe honest, it'd be a really good thing, but then taking more parking. But
Like a rotating?
yeah,
Well, do you
and that was a good lease at one point in time with a rental car company. Right, Mike?
I mean, yeah, we had Hurts literally right over there where Care Ambulance is now. At one point in time, when they kind of came down to Iowa City and started in the area, they started here. And they've been through 3 or 4 places, probably even double that, but
There is one called Go Rentals, which would be a company that tends to go after that focuses on like destination locations, kind of like this, where you get a lot of people who come in like Iowa City. And it's designed more as slightly higher end vehicles for a round trip or for as a not a one-way rental. We've started to see them pop up and grow. They're in like Aspen and Telluride initially, but now they're starting to be a lot of places. But if you could get a company like that, then that'd be another source of rental income.
Could they be on airport property?
Sure.
I mean, you lease the space downstairs, or how does that work?
Yeah, we lease. Yeah, it'd be a commercial agreement. You just have to have a place to house them.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great to plan for potentially, second flight training operation. One time we had 2 flight training operations, Jet Air and somebody else here, and a helicopter training operation. So that'd be something from an office space wise.
The office space for sure, we need.
So when we met earlier, we talked about specific office space needs, but we didn't talk about like other entrants or other lessees. So maybe when we do the program, we should provide some redundancy in there, like 10% additional office space or something.
And we want to consider some separate outside doors for maybe this a new wing for that kind of thing. It's just a thought.
Yeah, that's good. The hard part about aviation related businesses is that we're 150% out of hangar space. So the aviation business can't physically move here. And there wasn't terminal money won't allow like an attached hangar to it or
Probably not.
probably not. Just checking.
Like a huge hangar.
Like a huge hangar.
Yeah. Well, this has all been really good. Maybe if you guys are open to it, if you could kind of like come up to these boards and we could talk a little bit about visual preferences. I have some red dots and some green dots. And the green dots are, I really love this image. There's something about it that I think is so cool. And the red dots are like, no way, like, we should go in a different direction or look at something different. So I'm just going to hand out some dots. If everybody wants to start dotting, I have extra dots.
Every picture or just the ones you can
Just the ones that you particularly like, or you're like, oh my gosh, no way.
Okay.
And after everybody has a chance to dot, we'll have a bit of a discussion because you might see that there's some that have gotten a lot of dots and we want to talk about why. Yeah. The earlier conversation. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Easels collapsing.
You do some not.
Yeah, that's something about.
for my nuts to be different.
Yeah. That's been one.
Like all over the hangers.
Money stock, like.
My vote's come to five, right?
We've got another topics here.
Might be less. It's called angos and stuff.
I think that those are not something else. This stuff is all that really good. We just like this airport, so that's like happy member.
Yeah, this was the.
Problem, Carl, there's. Yeah, oh, yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Be very excited.
So
I was thinking about using my red dot, I didn't use my red dot.
You have to have eight as well as well.
Embrace the image.
See a lot of red dots on some of these images.
It's a good question, you know.
There's some psychology to it, right? Like sometimes people are like. Yeah.
Scale is way out.
Yeah.
No, but they're not all so good.
So.
I know you care, maybe how to get it.
Alright, so that's what I'll, before like doing that.
Yeah.
I like to have 1.5.
The one that we were seeing.
Just board cookie. Yeah. This happened very like that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's. That's what I was thinking. Which one would have the high?
Want me to return that?
I was not here on these dots, thank you.
And then you make it so it's like there's not so really less.
It's the movie band sound is.
I think.
Yeah.
Red dot on Jackson. Hopefully I'll be trailing it back to Muscatine. Go catch up with it.
So
On Earth.
Yeah,
Everyone's entitled there. Because of what mine got back, right? That's not something, that's sometimes. In the background.
Yeah.
Because some of them, it's here, they're not my personal favorite.
It's just terrible that she brought these cookies there.
And I want to sit there and.
Yeah, I was just looking back, I thought everybody watching the sky grow darker outside of this side of the windows.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was instead.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm glad to look at that.
And I'm sort of looking like more interesting. And we didn't say, we didn't talk about this, but the existing building, like, that's going on there.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Well, the tornadoes that hit back in what, like 2006, we were at an airport commission meeting that night.
Oh. Was anyone else?
So thanks for the dots. Maybe we could just do like a little bit of a recap and maybe put some. And put some words around why people like some of these images, and then that'll help us sort of isolate some things. So this one got 3 dots. The Appleton Airport in Appleton, Wisconsin. What is it about this image that people like? What do they think is successful about it?
The wood shape.
Natural lighting.
It's somewhat compatible with the aesthetic of the airport terminal today. Like it reminds me of our terminal, and I'm constantly thinking of the lettering, which we've talked about, that needs to go on the new terminal.
Okay. And similarly, this one, the Ames got a lot of green dots, and I suspect that a few people have visited that in person, right? So what is successful about that terminal?
Open. Or spot.
Okay. Overly modern, but simple. Yeah, simple.
I don't recall what it looks like from the ramp side. But I remember, because I looked at that and really liked the front of it, but I could see them.
You guys designed it, right?
Yeah.
Just the green.
And so the ones that got a mix of dots are this one, the Pangborn Airport in Douglas County, Washington. What did the green dot really like about this one? If anybody remembers who put the green dot there? What did you guys not like about this one, if you were the red dot person?
Well, that's similar to all of them.
Okay, so maybe it's too generic or. It looked like I was
Written on that, so. It doesn't, it doesn't have the wood, the warmth.
Yeah.
It's a little colder. Looks sort of more like.
Howard Johnson's.
I was gonna say, so.
Yeah.
That's true, man. There's definitely the highlight.
Yeah. I think that's the first time, like, we've talked a lot about amenities, but nobody really said hospitality. But I guess when you're starting to look at these images, some of them feel like more hospitality focused. Yeah. And that's good to know. That's a word that sounds good. Okay, so the ones that people really did not like are the Myrtle Beach Airport and the Eagle County. What about those just was not?
Cold.
Beach looks like a church.
Yeah. Okay. That's a certain style. I would
We're
say.
thinking Australia.
The other one, I think it's more, to me, it looks like more of a machine cat than it does the terminal building.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, more industrial.
It also didn't seem to have like, it didn't know what it wanted. Like you look at it and it's just kind of, I also don't know if it's like, that was just a shot of that airport because you could see like a gate there and, you know.
That is not the best shot of that airport. The like entry looks a lot better, but I think maybe it's just the way they decided to clad the near side portion of it.
The reason why I didn't like them is because they don't have a lot of natural lighting like the other things. And sometimes the moment you can come. We need to worry about that tonight.
No.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
What? Oh,
Which we're going to pick up a little bit.
Window pick up to nowhere.
There's no rotation. That's just a thing.
Yeah.
Anything we have to worry about is to get.
if it gets too much bigger, this will be decided for us.
Storm shelter is one of them.
A storm shelter is something we should keep in mind.
Measures of success.
Yeah.
I have a storm shelter is big enough to be 20 people. That's
That's true though, because the whole airport, there's nothing underground other than this brick 75-year-old space, small space.
Tornado shelter. Yeah.
Okay, and just talking really quickly about the interior images, is there anything here that people really liked? I see there's a lot of green dots on Jackson Hole, one red dot. Is it the wood that's supposed to be in the back?
What in the warmth,
But
the light.
the wood better light.
Okay,
Warm light.
okay, that's. And the one with all of the glass got two resounding red dots there, so that was too much.
It's not functional for our fucking it.
I
Yeah.
So why, yeah, it's,
It's huge.
Yeah,
Hazardous.
yeah. Scale is off. Too much glass. And just to kind of conclude, are there any images on here that people felt really strongly about that they liked a lot? And we should definitely do something like this conference room or,
Yeah.
that was nice.
yeah, that's a nice conference room.
Yeah.
But I don't like that it's. It's a kind of floor rather.
It's probably a stair. Hopefully.
I qualify this as I don't typically have to take care of them. I also don't mind paying. It just lightens things up a little bit.
Oh, you mean that green wall?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that in a number of public buildings.
I was, we got a Buffalo, one of them had that, so all. And it was all wilted,
You know?
they had
Well, that's-
then it had dead parts in it, I mean, it takes a lot of work.
I don't know why the Cedar Rapids Airport terminal, they had that one wall that got the escalator, this was planned to be a living wall. But it never happened, and I don't know what happened. There was a reason why they couldn't do it here.
They tend to be expensive and then you have to pay somebody to maintain them to stay alive.
That's too much.
Yeah.
Plastic.
Then you gotta dust them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
And what about this one people did not like, the too cold, okay. What about the seating type though, like the individual club seats, like, no, you want something more conversational?
Yeah, I think,
Things that move around.
like, if you look at how we've got the downstairs, and even to some degree, this kind of envelops a circle, if you look, at, you know,
Yeah.
the whole. Having that in rooms, but even having like smaller circles where you've got the 2 or 3 chairs that cluster.
Okay.
That, I think.
Great.
Okay, so this has been super helpful for us. I think it kind of like added some detail to what we talked about earlier. So the next steps here, we're actually going to start drawing the options, and then we're going to have 2 interim design meetings where we kind of show the progress. We talked earlier about scheduling some upcoming community meetings as well to get community feedback like we did today, and then feedback on the options after we obviously cook them a little bit and then share them with you. So we are on our way. So thank you for all of the input today. It's appreciated.
That's good. So I don't want to. Or did we just pick them? We go back.
It's been a lot of days.
We did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the 17th is our planned community outreach meeting, August 17th.
And we'll do something similar.
That's our regular Thursday.
No, that's what we got earlier.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yes, the other piece of the conversation was, this was a separate email, but you all did get a copy of the survey. This survey is intended for pilots and users of the airport in terms of what facilities, amenities, services they're expecting, folks are expecting. If there's something on here that we're missing, now's your time to tell us.
What gets sent out.
Otherwise, we're gonna kind of start locking this down and publicizing it and we can start.
So they're gonna rely on your expertise and your expertise in flying, fire, running the airport, be July 30th. And it's coming. It's still gonna be July 30th, or when they're due.
We have some flexibility on that, but we do need to make sure we get done with the appropriate timeline for.
Once you let there, it says that's when it was due, you can take over. The page, this one, yeah, the back side of it says it's in July 30th. Oh, which seems reasonable still.
How is that getting distributed again with email?
We'll probably set up or what are we doing a website for that? There's a
website, like somebody, do it right on the website and send on.
I was asking Mike if we can partner with the city and put it as an insert in the water bill.
I still need to look in that. I didn't get a chance to think.
Maybe not everybody watched their inserts in the bill, but it's there.
Know that I've ever looked at my water bill. Plus, it's been a number of expenses.
Did you give your email though? For the bill?
I do get the.
So in the email, I have the link for all the inserts.
Oh.
You don't read the email.
No, it's just like, oh, I need to get a water. You can see this somewhere and I get water.
Yeah. I don't know that would be as helpful. Think other thing has to come, we'll reach out to people, but maybe not the route that we need. Yeah.
Sorry to disappoint. Yeah.
Okay, so don't worry about wasting time and looking for that one.
But yeah, we'll do the normal social media channels. We'll have a press release or something with the city. And obviously, we can post that right here. Hopefully, Matt will assist in sending it out. Encourage people to have copies downstairs with the best to make sure people fill it out.
Then we can partner with. And we start on it.
Yeah.
So the next item we have is solar power project.
Anything else for the terminal study? Okay. And don't want to cut off conversation if there's no conversation yet. We do to some degree, but yeah, we should. Want to make sure we had sufficient conversation. It's just easier for me to pull these up rather than try to sort it through. So to give you some history, I tried to do that in the memo that I wrote, and I don't know if I did a very good job, but the Airport Commission had started this conversation for solar power in many years ago. And in 2020, we did an RFP for services under a PPA agreement. And at the time, the reason it didn't go forward is because we included jet air and the university lab. It was a huge risk for the airport to guarantee for 20 years we were going to buy all of that out. When Bill came out, or when the bipartisan infrastructure law came out, we knew there was language in there for energy efficiency or climate action type activities. So we restarted the conversation, and it started as we were just going to do the airport related billing. So the runway lighting, terminal billing, things that directly affected us. Because of the amount of allocation that was written into the bill that kind of came after we started those conversations, we realized we can go back and include OPL and jet air again in the maintenance shop and evaluate, either rooftop or ground mounted display or ground mounted power. And that's kind of what we asked CMT to do, is take a look at the 4 facilities, give us some options, and they've done that. So what you've got is several options for rooftop and ground mounting of each facility. Really, the only drawback with rooftop mounting is all of the buildings are pre-engineered, so they all need structural reinforcement. If we were to use the rooftop mounts, also with OPL, we don't have the rooftop square footage to do a full system that covers the power they draw. It gets about half of their so with that, the ground option displays are kind of, and the one that I really want to talk about is this setup where we have OPL and the maintenance shop off to the side, kind of on the north side of OPL in the grassy area that we tend to use for parking for special events, other things like movie night, stuff like that, where this is probably going to be a trade-off where if we put solar power panels there, chances are we're not going to have those kind of events because we're not going to have space for them. So that's
ignorant question.
Yep.
Do they need to be close to the facilities?
They need to be relatively close because we have to tie into the meter. The way the system works, it's a net metering system. So as the power is being generated, either the facility is using all of it or the meter essentially is running backwards to some degree.
So how close they need to be?
Close enough to be cost effective to where we're not running cable, half of it. That's kind of the trade-off. Like we can move them in different places, but you're also paying for that much more cable to tie them into the system.
Is there a reason why we're not moving them closer to A or Mike and whatever?
Well, the thought process that I had is if we got them closer to the north, and also if we did the rooftop mount for jet air, there's still some decent space here that we might be able to preserve some activity. I don't know for certain. That's kind of the issue that, I just don't know what that looks like. I have an idea of how spread out the movie night club is because they run off the back of this building. So they do get closer, but I also, kind of right about here is the cutoff of where cars tend to be. So it does pose, those issues where I just don't have a concrete answer for you that for certain we tend that type of event. Now, pancake breakfast, things like that, we have this area for parking out here that we use. The car show in the last few years, and I expect that to continue in the future, has moved from the Beacon Circle to the hangar or the taxi lane that's down here, because that helps draw people over to the final building that Jetter's at as well. So I think from that aspect, from the pancake breakfast aspect, we're it's going to be rougher, but we can manage that and still have that. I think events that strictly take place within this area are the ones that are in question.
Is there a reason why they prefer that specific area?
Proximity again. We can with either one of these layouts, the university meter and building is right here, and Jet Air's meter is on this side of the building. So at some point in time, we were running the wire to kind of the accessible parts of the building.
I was thinking about the movie.
Oh, why they're using this building? Kind of the same thing, because it's kind of the one building that has a deep grass space that you get a solid wall.
We had looked at using the building to its right, but like even that, there wasn't enough depth with where the fence is and all those trees. I mean, wasn't a good spot there.
The reason why I was asking about proximity on the panels was to solve the problem that we have at the other side of the river. But then you would be too expensive.
Yeah, that is unfortunate.
Yeah. Land that we have,
Yeah, that is unfortunately not an option.
And out by the wind team, Mike. I mean, I know it's a long ways, but it's still not terribly much further than, like, is that a feasible area?
Well, oh, and you're talking south. That's here. I mean, Assad, if you want to speak to that, maybe to give you an idea of what Matt's talking about.
I don't have.
Maybe this area here, but I don't know. Even then, it's on the air side of everything.
So closer to the runway, you get where study will probably not have we're going to have so much clarity on the approach side.
Gotcha.
So we don't recommend on that close to the runway.
Sure. Okay.
What about? We'll go back to the other one. Okay, the top 1, 2, and 3 are shorter than all of the others.
Yep, and that's a product of basically the shrubbery and the trees that are all right here in the fence line.
And shading.
What
if part of that is shifted over the trees and stuff? I mean, because we're going to be doing some different landscaping stuff there anyway. Could you have all that power go up to those 3 and make them longer? And
you're talking to essentially kind of pull the trees out of this area and put the panels into place? Is that what you're?
That's what I'm wondering.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
That's some of the area that needs to be redone anyway, right? Reevaluated for the landscaping anyhow.
I mean, that's an option that we didn't consider, as you can see kind of by the 2 layouts. Part of it was with the fencing here, we already have it self-contained to where it's protected to some degree.
It's already fenced,
so
everything.
Not that fencing is super expensive.
Also the drive, we're talking about the drive lane, leaving it open for movie nights if the people want to drive.
Yeah, that was another consideration as we were trying to leave room here for vehicle traffic to get through.
Okay.
Yeah, the gate that they enter is right here.
So there wouldn't be entrance on this side by the building, or the red, whatever that is in red.
This?
Is there no way to get it in through that one? To the area where they.
No, there isn't a security fence.
What would happen?
I feel like there might be a gate here. But
There is a gate down here, but I'm 99% sure it's.
What if it just did a row of them right here and then had all the traffic and everything go around it? I mean, because then this would be closer. You'd have shorter lines going here and here. And just had this right here. Would that,
I mean, we can,
would
we
that-
can
would
use
that
this
fit?
area, again, part of the reason why we chose inside the fence is because it's protected.
but have that be a fence solar?
If we want to put a fence around it, I don't see a particular issue here.
Because then it seems like then you've got close and you're close, you're out where you're not going to have anything blocking it at all. That gives you this whole back area to do whatever else.
I thought that was your movie night or other, no, not movie,
But
the
that-
car.
But that's all over here. That's not,
That's not
There.
here though. That's down, like, that's down at the taxiway that's in front of these hangars.
Yeah, I think that would be
So,
closer to the interconnection, yeah.
Oh, but pancake breakfast, didn't you say with them?
No.
no. Those are all the other stuff.
pancake breakfast, this hangar. Or
Surely
surely,
probably
yeah.
2 rows then if I.
Yeah, just 2 long rows, right? And then do the fence around.
So for the sake of brevity, there were other plans in here that didn't use this area at all. Are we going to talk about those?
The other ones are for the north side, so this area. This is what is running or functioning for the airfield lighting and the carry ambulance building. The 2 options here, and given the price differential, what I'm hoping the airport commission agrees with me is we keep the service road. There are a few things we'll have to do because on our ALP in part of the master plan, when we talked about a snow equipment building, it was tabbed to be in this area. So there's a little bit of just a big red X on an ALP that says we're actually not doing this. This is happening instead. But to save the service road, I have reached out to the university because this is kind of their research square for the hydrology department. There is a electric line that kind of runs from their trailer here into the power supply right there. I just didn't remember. But beyond that, I don't know that we have anything in the area that we'd have to worry about. So
that's just airport lighting.
The airport lighting and the carry ambulance building.
Okay.
I believe if I remember the layout, this was for the ambulance building. And this all up here is the airfield lighting piece.
That sounds.
Do they end up putting gravel underneath it, or what do you do for maintenance and stuff?
Just the prairie grass or the grass underneath. Sometimes you mow it, it doesn't grow that much, but we don't put gravel in there. These are pile-driven stakes. You just put a pile-driven stake with the framing racking system on it.
Gotcha.
The pre-engineered, prefabricated system.
Easy maintenance around it and.
Right. And these are 30-degree tilt. You can actually walk behind it and underneath if you need to go or mow something, but usually it doesn't go like that.
Gotcha.
The location of that's okay for the airplanes and everything.
So yeah, we will do the glare analysis on that. These panels have less reflectivity on it. And we have done similar, goes approximately to the runway. It would pass them.
And so we would pay to put these in, we get money back to help cover our electricity back and forth for companies.
Right.
So if there's hail damage or something happens to that, then we end up having to pay to have all that stuff fixed.
Right. So the airport will own the system, a complete system. The module itself are rated for 1-inch hail.
Oh,
Anything
okay.
above and beyond, it would become an insurance rider on your policy. If it's a hail damage, like you would do for the roof replacement, if there's a hail damage. As far as the energy goes, the energy will go, it's called behind the meter. It will be connected to the system. The airport will use that energy first. The remaining energy will go back to the grid. And at nighttime, when you get the energy back, the net metering system, end of the month, you will pay the difference.
Which system covers that light?
That's all tied into the electrical.
That's all.
Okay. I like this. Yeah, I think this is great. The other one, I think I would like it to be the long instead, but other than that.
And you calculated this will provide what % of our energy needs?
So for airfield lighting and building B, these 2 systems or the other layout will provide 100% of the energy usage as it is. now. JA maintenance will get 100% even if you do the rooftop. The only building will not get 100% energy for the usage would be OPL if you do a roof mount. If you do a ground mount, that is also sized for 100% on solar.
But I understood the roof mount isn't really an option for most of our buildings.
We did price that with our structural engineer. They did the analysis on the spacing of the joists and all that. It came out about $150,000 improvement to the roof to put the solar panels on.
Okay.
But we had all that in our.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Joe.
So yeah, what
What do we need to do now?
what I guess at this point, if the airport commission is okay with these layouts, we can move forward. And I think what I'm hearing for back here is what I was initially going to propose was, I know it's more expensive, but to do the rooftop on Jet Air's hangar because it's got square footage. We can do all of that, and that cut down the area that we needed. But if we're going to do solar panels over here, which we can certainly do and look at, we'll move forward with that plan and then do all of the ground mount for both the OBL's building here and Jet Air's building and factor in this area here so that we can shrink what we're doing and preserve as much as this area.
I think it's pretty important to preserve that part.
Yeah.
And fencing, like you said, is
And then
that's an easy expense to.
yeah, we'll have to adapt some fencing because we do want trees behind the fence so that people don't
for sure.
Get into them. But also we and part of the reason why we were with this layout too is because this is probably going to be the most visual piece of it that we can see. This area isn't exactly easily seen from the roadway.
So can we just move the fence that's there to cover it?
Yeah, I think there's probably going to be a need for some new fencing because we're not going to have enough, but we will shift the kind of the appropriate outline.
Because we don't need that triangle shape anymore of fencing. Now you just do it around the solar.
The one thing to talk about too is with potentially have a conversation with OPL, because I know there's been times where they have big events and things like that themselves where they're kind of bulging out in that space a little bit too with generals and people coming in.
Honestly,
around the side though.
If we can make it work, I think what I would probably prefer, at least from an overhead look, is if we run north-south along this fence and just come out into this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the longer you spread it will more expensive because you're still running cable between the each area. If it's all along one way, it's a little cheaper, and then that'll offset the fencing cost. But we can make it work.
Well, I think it, like Matt said, and that was something I did immediately. When Tom does special events, he usually has this area pretty back for parking. So I think we can preserve, some frontage here for Tom for parking for his events, and still have our solar power here.
Right.
But isn't that's breaking up all of that other parking area?
Well, if we move the fence, you mean? Up there, because that fence may move.
If you go it like that, then you have a little parking area and then you can go around it a little bit and then go down to the other area for parking?
No. You keep this open. So basically this fence line just slides over.
Right. Yeah. There's a water main and we'll have to remember.
I can understand.
Can I ask about winter time with snow covering you said it was a 30-degree tilt. Snow.
Okay, so there's a fence right here.
About that day.
So it's gonna come over to here? Come over here.
I have solar panels on the house.
So parking here and then they can't go around that fence to come over and park
You
here?
don't generate any power weeks after.
4 weeks.
They would,
When we did our analysis, this is.
Okay,
All the statistics.
you're saying,
Data in it. And also.
so we're still gonna have some inside this fence here.
So.
Why? Why can't, I still don't understand why you can't do here. If they need parking, have them, they can park here or the other side of the solar, or park here.
But
I
they
mean,
rarely need.
can't they get in through here?
Probably once.
No,
a year.
there's no gate right there.
The gate's way over here.
The gate for here is like down here. Like it's not meant to be a
Gate for
driving
here.
gate. The gate to access this area is up there.
Okay, but the gate for here, for the
There
OPM.
is no gate for here.
Okay, so
Like this is to
So they-
access.
so they can park right here and be right here. So
No,
why
because
can't we do
there's
that?
still fence here.
That's what I was asking. So you're saying there's,
So what we would have, so like OPL would just stack up here, like you see how these cars are being in
Yeah.
a row behind them.
okay. So now you'd have a whole thing here that you basically created a barricade here. So now you've got parking here, and then they have to go up around the barricade to come over here if they're doing something?
No. Because to get into OPL, you come down here. Do you,
But if you want to get over here, if we have,
like for the pancake breakfast?
yeah.
If you park over here,
Mhm.
you walk this way and you
Right.
enter the taxi lane over here through the gate and you walk
Right.
down and over.
But
That's what's done today.
if you're, okay, but if you're saying you want a restaurant, you're gonna want another set of parking areas. So now you've got parking that's gonna have to come out over here or somewhere. If you're gonna add your extra parking, because you have more people coming, or if we have more people coming for the air things, suddenly you need that space over there and everywhere else to park. You don't want it blocked off. So why not have the solar stuff here? It's cheaper for here, it's easier, and then you have this whole area that you can have for parking.
So are we gonna?
I think what you're trying to say is we take the whole thing and we mirror on the other side of the fence, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
No. Okay.
She's advocating for the longer, I think she's advocating for
I
the
want-
longer thing.
I just want right here,
East-west,
this way, yeah, east-west,
but the,
right there.
Judy, the
So
problem
we've
with
got
that
the
one was that,
parking here and down to here.
the problem with that one though was that it blocks OPL from having parking for their events.
They can have a gate right here, they can come in through here, they can, I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point.
I have a question now.
Because why, I
They
mean,
were talking about using the roof for the maintenance shop. right?
yeah,
How much will that reduce of those that we have in Britain?
It was that,
Not much.
not much. Yeah, it's not, it just seems like
Much smaller.
if you could open a gate, create a gate right here, put the solar things here and have people park here and everywhere around here. It gives you so much more flow of parking
So where are you gonna put the fence? If you put that there?
around the
Just a
solar,
circle
around the solar
The other.
and remove that other one. Yeah,
Is that it? Does that all that open?
That will open up the entrance visually, or, I mean, you'll work around whatever you decide.
but visually, it would just make it so much better.
Northernmost rows, the more options you have for an entrance and a gateway.
if we don't do that.
No, I mean, if we do it, you make.
If you make east-west, yeah.
And make it longer, lower ones, that opens it up more visually.
Then you've got your view, you've got where everybody can park.
Make the road wider.
And if the problem is you need to get to OPL, well, put a gate in there. I mean, if there's a fence right here, put a gate in there so they can park here. They can park all around depending how many people. And if we have other things coming up where they need more parking, you've got a whole parking area instead of this funny little thing that costs more money. Anyway.
I'm not strictly opposed to a longer row. I think the longer row does make it cheaper. But
Yeah, I'm good with east-west.
yeah, I'm good with.
Yeah, I think we can space it back to where they can still put a car lane for right up against the fence if they want to or whatever.
Right, just back it a little.
Well, I've always liked the concept of removing this big fence is kind of awkward. Not, maybe not, I've thought about if you could have the fence kind of go along the back of the buildings, then you have this whole thing for parking.
Well, if we do a road here, we're still not removing this fence, because
Why?
now we're gonna need this fence for what's left up here.
No.
Like,
Oh,
the road here is not enough to cover all of this.
You're gonna need.
So if we're gonna do, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, are we taking all of this and
Yes.
putting it over here?
Right.
Yes,
Okay, that's the configuration.
As tight as they can.
Okay,
And the spacing you're showing between the rows, is that the minimum space?
That's the minimum for shading.
Right.
Can we do those interrows this one?
Yeah, we can set it up, lay it out as the way we want.
Would that be enough?
I will have to go back and look at it, but you can do 2 or maybe 3 rows. If you do JA maintenance also part of it, both buildings, you will need 3 rows. I can tell you.
Then you're thinking
Yeah,
of
that's-
closer parking.
Oh, there you go.
that's, so,
That's
yeah,
what worked out.
that's the footprint you need.
Yeah.
So you will need about 3 rows. Longer.
but it's buildings for sales.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Cheaper too.
And a little cheaper with the copper, the closer to the building.
I guess just for the sake of time, I guess what we're all saying is let's explore some east-west rows that go past that fence. If we have to build new fence, great.
Yeah,
But
fence isn't the issue. I'm just trying to figure out what the vision looks like. So, and it sounds like Assad's got it, so.
What we agree on.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll set it up.
Okay, then the next item on the agenda, the Iowa DOT grant.
23 program, I did not see any emails from anybody for bids.
On the block goals, but we'll reach out more. I had one company said that you need to get a larger construction company. I'm thinking it's a 6 foot by 7 foot glass block house. But I'll reach back out on that one. And then on the signage, we're still working with fuel on the size of the letters. My concern is that we put a sign that you can read. The trouble is as much information's on the sign, but if we get the size where the letters are easy to read, we don't want to mass their sign either. So we've gone back and forth, and I measured even the existing sign out there with that information. Those letters are 2 inches. The first iteration we got from Fuel had them sized at 1.5 inches, which is not even that big. And as I looked at that sign today coming in, I thought those aren't even big enough. So I'll be working with them. Well, we're going to try to manage the size of the sign and make sure we can read the letters.
At least 3 inches. Yeah.
Well, at least 2.5, I think. There's a rule of thumb that it's like every inch is, if you want to see it like 15 feet away or something like that. And I know you're not coming in fast. And there's also so much information, you need a little processing time. Although 90% of people are going to know where they're going, and if they have to, they might stop. But I mean, that's not our goal. So I'm going to continue working with Mike and Fuel on that to get the right size of it.
Ready for that?
Thank you.
Okay.
24
program, the DOT took the draft plan for 24 to the Transportation Commission Tuesday. Unfortunately, we are not among the list. We did apply for funds for the fuel farm, front end cabinets, the loading, the filter systems, that kind of stuff. I did have an opportunity to talk to Shane, the program manager, and we were kind of a victim of our own need for money. When we submitted the grant, we submitted it at an 85-15 split. They give you bonus points if you offer more of a better match. We submitted at the bare minimum. It was an educated risk because we had bill money that we were talking about and other stuff that we needed funds for. But what happened is we got grouped in about a stack of 8 or 9 different projects where when the money ran out, and he went with a project that he could fully fund as opposed to naturally half funded project. But he said, project was good, the application was good. So I think we'll take another run at this. I don't know if that's going to be next year, or the year after. We're also kind of in the middle of our taxiway extension phases of stuff that we're using DOT or state DOT money for. So we'll be weighing those in terms of, what that priority looks like next spring. Airport.
Can you that get tied in when you do the ramp expansion or any of our fuel?
Probably not.
Movement? Okay.
Not with the FAA.
Okay, let's check.
Next item on the agenda, the airport.
Locally funded projects, nothing there. The parking lot's finished. We finished, paid out the retainage for that. Future projects, again, if there are things you guys have seen, I know we talked about doing a meeting for a budget priority of projects to just kind of talk about what's on the books and what we've kind of thought about in the past of things to do. And maybe make some new priority lists, but right now that's just kind of in nebulous land. If you folks are wanting to do that in the near future, we should do that in the near future because we'll be talking CIP and budget probably starting in. I'm starting some of the budget documents right now. So September is usually the CIP month, and October and November is usually when we have to do the capital budget. So. It's going to happen quicker than anybody is expecting.
Future projects.
That's
Everything one. Airport operation.
Budget. We are in the new fiscal year. Welcome to fiscal year 24. As part of your handouts, I didn't get this into the packet, but I usually do try to give everybody the current fiscal year budget just to make sure you guys have it and kind of remember what we filled out a little bit. Again, there's no real initiatives in here that we're specifically targeting money for. It was a lot of general operations, a lot of general budget and that kind of stuff. So that's all I got for that. Management, before we touch on the fuel storage fee, I am filling out my survey for the classification and compensation study that the city's doing. Once that gets done, I will give it to Fletcher and Judy to kind of review and confer. They are doing it via hard copy, so I have to physically give everything on hard copy, so we don't change formatting or length or anything like that. So I'll get that to you guys. I hope to have that done tomorrow and then pick it up whenever. And then we're down to the fuel flowage fees. I think Chris mentioned this last month about getting this back on the agenda. Chris has kind of taken the lead from Scott to some degree since Scott rotated off the airport commission. Was involved in this conversation previously, but between me, Matt, and Chris, I think we've got.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to Matt today, and we kind of laid out the airport's case and what we were looking to do, and told him that basically, related to the brush map, we talked about the brush that we would really like to try to push that to fiscal 25 if we could, and try to shore up the cash on hand funds. Matt understandably wants the brush, and I totally get where you're coming from. Especially if we were to borrow the sidewalk with one in the future. But and the rationale there being that we don't have to look at potentially doing hangar increases and things if we push that off just a bit. So that's where I'm at, but I'm willing to bring this, we should bring this commission and see what people think. So the idea is that we would increase the fuel flowage fee by 5 cents per gallon, and that's across the board. We were talking before about having jet air business exempted and increasing it, I think, to 10 cents on the retail side. But in talking with Matt, I think the preference would be just a 5 cent across the board increase. And then that amounted to
about
$24,000 in additional revenue to the airport this year, and we could start showing it for that. And then it's been on Matt's list for a while. We've talked about the brush for getting snow removal. The idea is that we would buy one for the tractor, the airport would fund that in fiscal year 25 and budget for it. And that project would allow them to have the tractor behind the plow and they could be way more efficient in how they do it. So that's the idea.
And how much does the brush cost?
About the same as what.
I see.
Yeah, so Matt was wondering if we could do it both the first in the first year, like we increase the fee now, we look at buying the brush this year. My preference is to shore up the cash on hand because we've depleted it to some extent with some of the projects we've done. And then we really firmly commit to doing this in fiscal 25 to help Matt out and, get the airport back out and running after snow more quickly in that one. Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, Jen had pitched the idea, we'd be willing to buy the brush and defer the thing, but it sounds like financially it makes more sense to try to do it differently. But yeah, the biggest thing, so on our side of it is all of our airports are currently, so this would be 10, we're going from 10 cents a gallon to 15 cents a gallon. So it's, percentage wise, a huge increase. And it's 50% higher than any other airport in the area by a long shot. Like Cedar Rapids was 9 cents, other places are low. I just say that just because I want to make sure that everybody knows that, so it's not something we plan to tweak a lot down the road, but at the same time, it's something that we support from the airport standpoint because it's, obviously those funds are going to go into the airport and not going somewhere else. So that's the benefit to all of it. But so we're fine with that. If we can work out something great on the brush stuff, but at this point in time, it makes sense to try to get it going from the standpoint of, if we've agreed to it, try to get the airport getting the extra 5 cents a gallon, like as soon as we can, whatever that is. And then if there's something that works out great, just from the standpoint of, it's going to cost $25,000 next year. So, this isn't one of those things where it's like, oh, it's not good. But maybe there's other things that I don't know of. I mean, from the state grant perspective or anything else to get equipment, because that's our biggest thing is, it's one thing to increase the fees, another thing to try to increase the utility of the airport by having the equipment, which also increases your fuel flows income,
Well, so my question then for the commission is, does it hurt us to just get the brush this year and pay for it? Over the next.
We have some things coming up in the budget that we will have to manage. And November, there's a land lease that I'm not confident with it will be renewed. And that is $600 a month. Also, with the purchase of the brush, we will incur additional replacement fund charges to cover the life of the brush, so that at the end of 10 years or 12 years, whatever that looks like, we have funds on hand to replace a piece of equipment, and that's somewhere around $2,500 to $3,000. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm not expecting the lease to be renewed. So with 8 months at $600, you're looking at $4,800, almost $5,000 of lost revenue there. And if you add in the $3,000 for the brush for replacement expenditures, and it's a $10,000 hit that we might be facing. And some of that, granted, has been anticipated to some degree in the 24 budget, because it's not like this is large news, but also we don't have a lot of room in the budget to absorb too many losses.
Pretty close.
Or to add on a bunch of.
Okay.
We did also just donate to so included.
When was the last time we did a fuel?
This is the fuel storage rate is the original rate that was established with Jetter's operating contract. So it hasn't ever been changed. And that's kind of it is the last fee that we charge that hasn't been managed. We do hangar regular, as far as T-hangar goes, we look at those annually. We normally have had a system where roughly every 3 years we do at least an inflation or some type of market adjustment charge for T-hangar rates. Last year was a not only because of the inflation, we did a 10% increase on hangar fees. And, you know, with the increase in flowage fees, my goal at that point would be to not be able to return to that 3-year period where we don't have to do anything with the hangars. And then this also, you know, because it's fuel flowage, it does hit, all uses of the airport, well, provided they buy fuel, we get some business jets that don't buy fuel. But typically, it broadens the load than just, having to tap the hangars every time we need revenue.
And the good news is, from a revenue standpoint, even though the flowage fee hasn't increased, the flowage income is more than double in the last 10 years because the quantity is in.
Yes.
So if you look at it across, it was in 2012, it was 22,000 in income, and then 2022 was 51,000. 23, this last 12 months is probably close to 44. So I mean, it's definitely increased significantly. Yeah. It's just, but it's because of the volume.
Is it going to make a difference when, we're trying to phase out the lead gas or something?
When that transitions, I mean, I would anticipate that the flowage fee of whatever product on the field will probably end up being the same. So if they can start operating different products, then yeah.
Okay.
You'll have to come up with something for electric airplanes, though.
Yeah.
Right.
You get the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds like it's reasonable.
So I think what we'll do for next month is we're prepared, because I need to look at the FBO agreement and just confirm we don't need any contractual amendments. I'm not 100% sure how that's written in there.
Do you want us to pass a resolution, or do you want us to pass a motion contingent on looking at that? Working with Jennifer on.
I mean, I think we're okay waiting till the next month and then having it effective. I guess that'd be September 1st.
Okay.
And then that gives Matt some time to coordinate with Titan Fuels, his fuel provider, because what happens is they essentially collect the flowage fee and then cut us a check, so they can adapt their, adjust their system so that on September 1st, any fuel after that is at 15 cents rather than 10.
Okay.
In the past, I think it was here, maybe it was in Burlington, it was supposed to be like 5 cents when we took the inventory, and 5 cents when we sold it, or something like that. But
it's actually, that's how it's actually written.
It's how it's written in
5 cents in, 5 cents out.
But what we've done is we've done it so it comes our provider, every time they bring us fuel in, they send the airport a check. So it doesn't even hit for the full 10 cents, or just hit the full 15 cents. It's just ease of accounting, and then nobody wonders why we got some, and then due to evaporation or whatever that was left.
Yeah.
Okay.
And share of it.
Yeah. Be honest. Okay.
So we'll do that. Events, there's a new event on the list, Climate Fest Film Night. The Climate Action Committee and Climate Action Office is going to have a film out here, kind of similar to what Summer of the Arts does. I'm not 100% sure what the film is, but they've asked about doing that, and I was like, yeah, great, come on out. Other than that, the list is pretty standard. You go across.
Can you get the sign that says future site of solar?
Outside of that, the list is pretty much standard for what you guys used to see. In the next event is the drive-in movie on August 5th. So I got a couple of weeks for that.
That be online training market?
Was the maintenance of the packet? Yes. Okay. It's all just weed eating and mowing and stuff like that. So no, they did actually get the chemicals stuff sprayed on the deck out there to preserve the wood and stuff. That's pretty much it for maintenance. On the generator side, the only thing that I had that's different than we've already talked about is I gave our the flyer to me, obviously the other owners of Jet Air, and they went through and so they decided. I think they already did it. Donated $5,000 to the mural project.
I haven't seen that message yet. So.
But anyway, I've given them the instructions. So anyway, so that should take effect, which would be cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So anyway, they did that and everything else is just all multiple training, all that kind of stuff. It's like, that's all. Unless we have any questions.
Nope.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sure, yeah.
Commission member report. Are we all gonna be there next week?
So it should be 17th, right? August.
The agenda for the August 10th. August 10th is on the bottom of the sheet there.
August 10th would be the second Thursday. That's the regular commission meeting night.
I will be here.
In August 17th, if you want to put it on your calendar, time yet to be determined with the public input section for the promoters.
Staff report.
I don't think I have anything. The 24th of this month, I may be out of the office. I don't know if I need a root canal or not. So I have a test. I need to figure that out.
It sounds so much worse than it is.
I'm waiting the same time.
Monday the 24th. Outside of that, I have no plans, absences or other meetings that should take me away for a while. Coming up this fall, I think the last week, is it the last week of August? Last week of Kansas City? Yeah. The FAA Central Region Conference, or formerly known as the FAA Central Region Conference, was the last week of August. The FAA doesn't host it anymore because they can't. So it's 4 states or whatever they call it, the FAA Central Region. But yeah, so that's I'll be out of the office a couple of days after before that conference.
Yeah.
And well,
I'll come back.
I guess this is your first one.
It's his first
I
one.
mean, you were here at the last one, but you were like,
Visitor.
a member of the public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still am, I think.
He now gets listed as commission president.
So motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you.
I'm getting